The Ohio Department of Education is currently in town. They've been in town since Monday. They're in town to do observations, evaluations, investigations, surveys, to understand why our school system has been performing at the bottom of the state for an extended period of time. This is a question that we all must understand because we have children that we love in this community. We have nieces, we have nephews, we have brothers, we have sisters, we have cousins. We care about our community. We want to make a difference, okay? So I'm going to apologize again to you. If things aren't perfect tonight, what do you say? Charge it to my mind, not my heart, or is it the other way around? Which one is it? But you know what I mean.
That's close, man.
We have a great informational show for you tonight. Again, my name is Hashem Jabbar. I work with 17 to 21-year-olds at the Job Center. I happen to have 2 of these young men that work with us. I do job training and job placement. I put young people to work. We're able, through this program, to pay their wage for 20 hours a week, 17 to 21-year-olds. We put them to work after school or on the weekends. So through this program, and also I work for the Montgomery County Youth Summer Works program this summer. So through this program, I've had a unique experience hands-on with young people in our community. We have an opportunity to help them fill out an application and to see how well they read. All of the young people that I work with currently today, I give them a 9th grade assessment to understand where they do reading and math at. And primarily 90% or more fail. 90% or more read at a 5th grade level, do math at a 3rd grade level. It's heartbreaking. Every day, this is what I see. I go into all the schools, not all the schools, I go into most of the high schools to recruit, to meet these young people. I go to their homes, I meet their parents to sign information, to get these applications. I was at a high school earlier this week to give a young lady, we were able to purchase her uniform. She's working at a local nursing home. And we were able to purchase her uniform for her. So what I do, I think it's a great thing. I enjoy it. I'm a young man at 36 years of age. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I still got plenty to go. And these young people remind me so much of my own experience. Because I was just that young man a few short years ago. They remind me it wasn't that short ago, but a few short years ago, I was that bored black child in the classroom. I was bored out of my mind. And so when you're bored, you find things to do to release yourself of boredom. Now that may get you in some disciplinary problems, but it angers me that at 30 years old, I had never read Booker T. Washington's From Slavery. They didn't teach this black man about black people. So the curriculum did not address my culture. I was bored, and I stayed bored. And I feel as an adult, it's an injustice. And I see these same young people going through the same thing, but we have a lot of problems here. It's not just the public school system. The last census said that Dayton was 1/3 in poverty. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it didn't say that. It said below poverty, 1/3. So we're talking about approximately 50,000 people living below the poverty line. So teachers have a difficult job. There's barriers before they get to the classroom. So they have a very difficult job. The superintendent has a difficult job. I think we've had 4 or 5 superintendents in the last 10 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we got some challenges. So tonight we want to get some information. We have a great program. I'm going to respect your time. We're going to try to be out here, Lord willing, at 7:35. I'm introducing, we're going to watch a video, and I'm going to ask my brother in the back. And I'm sorry, I want to thank, and we all need to thank the Coffee Lounge. Come on now. Here's my brother, man. Here's my brother. There he is. We want to thank the Coffee Lounge because I said when a hurricane comes, you're looking for shelter.
That's right.
So last week, I said, babe, we need to have an emergency meeting. It's an emergency. Well, where we going to have it? I said, I don't know. How about the Coffee Lounge? Call Brother Darren. And he said, come on in here. You know how much he charged me? He taxed me now. You know how much he charged me? I'm going to tell him, brother. He charged me. He did it for free. He said, this is about community. That's what he said.
That's right.
So I don't know if you know, but he has an excellent menu here. He has coffee here, but that's okay. The coffee's good, but the menu is better. At lunchtime, I was here a little earlier, had some excellent chili. You all should come back. and he has some better pastries. So if you like meat and you might need a little extra in the back, he can help your booty grow. Okay, with these pastries, they're delicious, tasty, and he has his menu up there. Now I'm down on the swine, but if you do, he may have a little bit of that too. So I thank my brother. Let's give him another strong hand. Again, I said I'm a youth advocate. I love young people. I try to work on their behalf. Dayton has a lot of challenges. I'm going to respect your time. We're moving into 610. We have 2 lawyers here from ABLE. ABLE stands for Advocacy. Advocates for Basic Legal Equality. The Ohio Department of Education, the Distress Commission, has taken over 2 other school systems in Lorain and Youngstown. They don't call it a takeover. That's not the type of language skilled politicians use. Okay? So it's not called a takeover, but yeah, like a G, gangster or God, whichever you want to put the G for, it's a takeover. Okay? We're running things now. The elected officials lose power, correct me if I'm wrong, and they will. They lose power. They have the power to appoint a superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, and yes, they will. So there's some significant changes we need to know about in our community, and these lawyers from ABLE are going to help us. Now, we have some community activists here tonight from Racial Justice Now who have been on the front lines.
That's right.
See, for me, I'm the communications coordinator for Racial Justice Now. We had a wonderful 2014. You should look at GoBlackCentral.com. I mean, they do great work in this community,
that's right,
holding elected officials accountable, changing policy in the school system, and he rallied and pushed so that kindergartners don't get suspended from school or expelled. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we thank them for that. So we keep the kindergartners out of cuffs. They asked for K through 3rd, correct me if I'm wrong, but they gave them K, so the fight must go on. Is that right? Yeah. Or do we just lay down? Or they didn't give it to us, let's go home. Is that what we do? No. See, tonight is about people power, okay? The individual has power. Tonight we're talking about change, not the type of change that you can believe in, but the change that you work to create, okay? We're talking about change that working collectively with a common purpose. And what is our common purpose? Our common purpose should be the betterment of our community, the betterment of our children, because the children are our future, and that's not just the same. 10 years ago, when the school was in academic emergency, correct me if I'm wrong, around that time, academic emergency, that 10-year-old is now 20. And because he's a natural 10-year-old, or she's a natural 10-year-old, they probably having sex, and they probably have some children, okay? So that distress is in our community. Vacant houses in our community, single homes in our community, lack of jobs in our community, right? Poverty in our community. Racial Justice Now is going to tell us about being on the front lines, attending these board meetings. Just like you came out to this meeting tonight, you need to come out to the board meetings as we move forward, okay? We're going to have some question and answer, and then we're going to form some committees, because it's not just about talk, it's about walk, okay? For me, I got to tell you, a lot of people don't like this, but I'm a spiritual person, okay? And I don't care if you don't like me saying, God has me on my post tonight, but God has me on my post tonight. Okay, so this is God's work. These are God's children. And I want you to understand, I don't care if you don't like that. I don't care if that's not politically correct. I don't care if it's not politically correct to say I'm a black man and I care about black children. That's what's up, period. Community tonight, working together with a common purpose. So I'm not going to be politically correct, but I'm going to give you information. We're going to organize and we're going to act. And Brother Darren, if we're going to hit the lights, we're going to watch a video from the last meeting at the Dayton Board of Education. Thank you, brother. That is on the archive. The sound wasn't perfect, but I think you got the picture that the Ohio Department of Education is in town investigating, observing, doing surveys, etc., because the Dayton Public School System may be in the process of a takeover by the state. They don't use that language specifically, but that is what it is. All right? So if you go to the archive or Dayton Public Schools website, you go to resources. On the drop-down menu, you'll pick DPS TV, and it starts at 1 hour and 10 minutes. You can view it for yourself at home. in your bathrobe, and in your bed slippers, okay? So we passed out water. Any of our elders want a seat, please take these seats so everybody can get comfortable. That's on the archive. Tonight is about community, information, organizing and acting. They are selling coffee back here. Please purchase something. This brother has opened this space up to us for free. Let's practice our community. Is that right? What they call it, brother? Collective working responsibility. What is cooperative economics? Is that right? We want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have two lawyers if they're ready from ABLE, which stands for Advocacy. Advocates for Basic Legal Equality. Two other school systems have been taken over by the Ohio Department of Education in Youngstown and in Lorain. These individuals have been monitoring that situation. They have experience on the ground. So they're going to talk for approximately 20 minutes. Everybody should have a card and a pen. We're going to those cards and a pen. We're going to take that card, and so you write down information. If you have questions, we're going to collect those questions. You should have a card and a pen, and we're going to collect those questions, and he agreed to answer those questions for us in a reasonable fashion. We're going to put it online somewhere. So, Mr. Bob Cole.
So I want to acknowledge too that Mr. Cole actually drove all the way here from Toledo, so I really want to acknowledge that, and we appreciate him for coming.
Thank you. So I'm from Advocates for Basic Legal Equality. We provide services to 32 counties in Northwest Ohio. My colleague here, Gary, would you stand up? Gary Weston is here in Dayton, and he works for Legal Aid of Western Ohio. And we are very close organizations, and we often work together. In fact, we have divided up into substantive practice groups between the two organizations, and we have a practice group that focuses on education advocacy in the 32 counties. Gary is one of the advocates in the practice group, and I have a chance to lead that practice group. I'd also like to mention how lucky you folks are here in Dayton, to have Professor Randall and Sakaya monitoring and keeping track of what's happening with education issues. I don't get to all the meetings that I should all throughout the state, but every time I come to an education meeting, whether it's the school board in Dayton or whether it's testifying in front of the House or the Senate committees on education, Sakaya and Professor Randall are always there ahead of me. I don't know how that happens, but I've never been to anything where they haven't already been there trying to keep track of what's happening and what's happening to affect our children. So I've been asked by Hasim tonight to talk about what does the law provide if, in fact, Dayton Schools gets placed into an academic distress or is declared to have academic emergencies. But first I'd like to maybe try to clarify the difference between what you saw in the video. There are really two offices involved. The first office is, I believe her name was Claire Huff Franklin. She is the person in charge of the Academic Distress Commission. But the gentleman that spoke after her is in charge of the Office of Educational Accountability. And so I think we have to, at least at this point, assume and take the man at his word, and that is ODE's feelings or motivation at this point in time is to try to keep Dayton Public Schools out of academic distress. The way that they're approaching this is by focusing on and using the resources of the Office of Educational Accountability, and that really is the authority by which they're here, or they were here, I guess it's completed by now, for the past 3 or 4 days, doing focus groups, meeting with students, meeting with teachers. And they're going to look at 9 standards. He mentioned a few of them. And by the end of March, I think, is when they will prepare their report. So as he mentioned, every school district in Ohio is supposed to have an academic improvement plan in place. And as the superintendent of Dayton Public Schools indicated in her introductory comments, Dayton Public Schools is in the bottom 5% of the academic performing schools in the state of Ohio. So our feeling is at this point in time, what they're going to try to do is work with the school district and try to support the school district to come up with and maybe improve the academic performance plan that they already have in place, so that Dayton Public Schools doesn't slip a little bit further, and in that regard ends up into the category of where they will have to come in and set up an academic distress commission. Now, they mentioned 2 other school districts. There's only 2 school districts in the state of Ohio that have actually been put into academic distress, Youngstown and Lorraine. So we've looked at what has gone on in those 2 school districts, and essentially, without going into a lot of detail, and again, I am an optimist, and I'm approaching this from the point of view that things might be done that will avoid this for Dayton Public Schools. So if it should happen, this is what happens. So a commission is appointed by the state superintendent of public schools. There's 5 people that are appointed to that commission. 3 people are appointed by the state superintendent of education. 2 people are nominated and appointed by the president of the local school board. And essentially, you have a commission now that has more power than the school board. They will come in and develop, within 120 days, the statute requires them to develop an academic reform plan. The whole point of what they're doing and the way they're going to do it and the way they measure the success of what they're doing is that in order to be declared an academic emergency, you have to have a failing grade of F for 3 years. If the commission is appointed and is established, they will stay in business and stay in authority until the school district is raised to a level of a grade C. And there are some other circumstances where the commission might be terminated earlier by the state superintendent, but generally they will continue to work with the district to try to get the improvements on what the state is looking for in terms of measurements of academic performance from where the district starts when the commission was established up to a grade of C. They have a lot of power. They have the power to terminate principals and administrators. They have the power to abrogate some collective bargaining provisions. They have the power to hire outside consultants and outside contractors to come in and improve the school district. So if in fact an academic distress commission is set up, they basically will run the school system until the school system is performing at a much higher level in regards to the standards that the state requires them to perform at. So, excuse me, as I mentioned, this has been an ongoing process in Youngstown and Lorraine. And I took a look at the 2 strategies or 2 academic reform plans that were put in place both in Lorraine and Youngstown. And they talk about improving enrollment. They talk about supporting and identifying principals in each building that are going to be dedicated to educate an educational environment that supports children. They talk about, especially in Youngstown, some of their financial difficulties. So it basically goes through a top to bottom evaluation, and where they think changes will be necessary, they have the authority to make those changes. And they continually monitor what they do by monitoring how the children in that school district perform. And again, once they see that the performance is up where they expect, the commission's dissolved. So I think that as a community, I know they were here, there were some focus groups by the evaluators. I think there's still an opportunity to reach out to these folks. I think that with some of the community leaders that you already have, that the community has an opportunity here to pull together and to reach out to the Ohio Department of Education and try to make sure that your voices are heard as they go through this very important evaluation. They've heard from the principal, they've heard from our principals, they've heard from the superintendent, they've heard from the school board, but they really need to hear from the community. And once they think they have collected all the data that the man mentioned, then they will come up with their recommendations. Those recommendations could be improving the academic improvement plan that the district already has. It could be that they come up with different plans, different improvement plans and suggestions. They could come up with a completely different plan than the district currently has, or they could end up recommending that the district go into and that an academic distress commission be appointed. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the Education Practice Group really wants to assist parents and families who are having difficulty, whose children are having difficulty in schools. We're interested in working with families whose children have been subject to disparate impact of discipline. So if you know families that have children who have significant out-of-school suspensions or have been expelled, we'd like you to contact us. We're also very interested in working with families who have children with disabilities to make sure that services are identified and that appropriate individual education plans are put in place. So this is an expansion of what we've done in the past, and we've now dedicated more resources to working on education advocacy. So please suggest to people that you know who may be having difficulty in school and their children are facing obstacles to contact us so that we can see if we can be of some assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary?
If I could just very, very briefly add to what Bob said, and again, my name is Gary Weston from Legal Aid, that we are available in some of the priority areas to, as Bob mentioned, represent or help individuals with legal issues. I do have some flyers here if anyone's interested. This has our contact information. It indicates some of the things that we might be able to help with on an individual basis. So please do get in touch if you think there's something we can help with. Thank you all for inviting us tonight.
So at this moment in time, what we're going to do, you know how we go into class where you take one and you pass it around? Okay, we're talking about community tonight. We're going to have about 10 minutes of question and answer. Like I said, we know this isn't perfect. You might not be able to hear perfectly, but this is an emergency. These are the things that have to happen when you have an emergency. So we're going to have about 10 minutes of question and answer. We're going to be very respectful of time. We're going to manage some order. And if we have a question right there, Mr. Cole, coming from this young man, Mr. Dr. Scott A. Mitchell. Yes, sir.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what you're saying, because my background is also law, is also in education. Now, I took it one step further because what the Department of Education is doing right now in this intervention process has brought a intervention team here to Dayton. Is the first time it's ever been done. So we're guinea pigs, and this is out of their language that they wrote. So we're the guinea pigs, once again. Our district is guinea pigs, our kids are guinea pigs, again. Now, the problem with that is, when we find out that something didn't work, usually the client is gone. So it didn't help out the people who were supposed to help out in the first place. So you have to look ahead, and you have to look at what it is that you really want to shoot for. Because even if they do bring it,
Mr. Mitchell, please ask the question. We got a lot of people that want to do that. Please be respectful of time. We're doing 10 minutes total.
I'm gonna get there. So, are we gonna be satisfied once again to have an intervention team come in and wait for their results? And then if we do have an academic distress team that comes in, are we gonna once again be satisfied with getting to our schools to a C when we really should be shooting for an A? Because that's the problem that Youngstown recognized, and they said we don't need that. Shooting for a C when we can shoot for an A, why don't we just get rid of the superintendent and start over with a whole new leadership team? What do you think about that?
Well, it's not the first time the intervention team's been used. The intervention team is used both in Youngstown and Lorraine, and the recommendations were adopted by the Academic Distress Commission. I agree with you. A C seems to be, a C is, you paid attention enough to be average. And if the expectations are that we want an average school district, then that's what you'll end up with. So I completely agree with you. I would suggest, however, that something has to be done, and within the resources that are available to ODE, they have selected Dayton as the first place that they're going to focus on improving academic performance. So I view it as an opportunity for the community, especially if the community coalesces around improving education, for actually things to happen that probably in the past would have been difficult, if not impossible.
Now you said a big word. Now I'm not a doctor like my man brother. You said coalescing. If the community coalesces around education, what does coalescing mean?
If everybody gets together and says educating our children should be the most important priority that we have in a community, then people will get behind this and try to work with whatever is being put in place so that we can improve education.
If everybody comes together, did you hear what he said?
You got another question?
That's what coalescing means. If everybody comes together for education, that's what we're here for tonight. If everybody has a card, please write your question down. At this time, you should have a pen and that piece of paper. We're not going to be able to answer everybody's question in this 10 minutes. We have a short period of time to answer these questions. We're going to answer some more, but if you have them, we're going to collect them at the end of this meeting, so please write those down. Mr. David Ezrati, and then this young man right here.
Real briefly, what happens to the local school board? And two, has this takeover strategy worked in any other district in the country?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
I can't answer the last part of your question because the system that we have in Ohio is, part of it is put in place because Ohio asks for a waiver under their Title III obligations that are set up by the federal government. Title III is the No Child Left Behind, passed under the Bush administration. So they asked for and got some waivers. So I think that what they're trying to do here is applies probably just to Ohio.
Okay.
The first part about the school board?
Yes.
The school board still is in place, and they're elected officials, and they will still conduct business. The only specific thing in the statute says that the school board cannot adopt any provision or any proposal that would abrogate or would take away a decision made by the commission. So if the commission says, I'm just using this
You're going
as
to replace the superintendent.
well, I don't know about the superintendent, but if the commission says we want to see new principals in these buildings, the school board can't vote and say, no, we're keeping the principals that we already have.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. This young man right here.
Okay, unless I misheard you, I did not hear a timeline on any of
A timeline.
this. A timeline.
The timeline is if you're a school district and your grade is an F, if they go that way. Now, again, we're all talking about the Academic Distress Commission. I think that we need to focus first on what steps are being put in place now, and that is trying to improve and make sure the academic performance plan that the district already has is evaluated and see if that can be changed in order to avoid having an Academic Distress Commission appointed. But assuming that doesn't happen, the commission stays, it could go on for years. The commission stays in place until the district gets up to average C. So they continue to work with the district until they raise academic performance up to a level that they would grade as a C.
On the timeline, when should we have a decision?
My
understanding
understanding is toward the end of March.
I have a question. You said they're in Youngstown and in Lorraine. Have any of those school districts at least met the standard of the C? And if so, how long did it take?
I don't think they've gotten there yet. I think Youngstown's close. And I don't know how long it took. I could go back and look at
How long have you been taking over?
Yeah,
1 year.
2 years.
Any other questions? Please write down on this card. If you need another one, please let us know. We'll be collecting these at the end of the meeting. Also, you can write down your name, your phone number, your email. Name, phone number, email. Yes, sir.
If you want to go to the ODE website and in the search box, because their website's really hard to get around, in the search box put Academic Distress Commission, and that will pull up a link to their page, and you can look at all of the minutes from all the board meetings for the 2 school districts. You can look at the academic performance plan. You can look at the plan that's put in place by the commission, and there's a lot of information there about what they're doing in Youngstown and Lorraine. Sir?
The word perform. When you look at the total student, you say perform. I mean, there may be categories. You may be talking academically, you may be talking about behavior, you may be talking about aesthetic sensibilities. There's a lot going into that composition of the word perform. So as ODE sees it, when they come into the building to take over, so to speak, and try to make sense of the disarray of the mess as they see it, how do they look at, okay, so the district and OD sitting at a table and they hash all this stuff out. I'm gonna make it really simple. And they come up with a plan of action. Well, at some point you gotta implement your plan of action to those whom you are servicing. Now,
Sir, please answer your question,
I'm
sir.
reacting.
We got 2 more minutes. Yes, sir.
I would have asked you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my question is during the implementation process, at the back end of that, how do you suggest that we actually engage these children in this plan that we have constructed so that the kids receive the plan? And if the kids, and what kind of time limitation for the kids to actually receive this plan? He talked about this time thing, getting to the C point, and then who's monitoring this thing from at the point of C when it declines and inclines? Who's looking at that piece?
ODE is collecting data as the plan is implemented. The plan is supposed to be developed within the first 120 days that the commission is appointed. And then the plan is supposed to clearly identify outcomes. Those are things that are measurable, so that if, for example, there is a problem with a high percentage of children failing the 3rd grade reading guarantee, then they would set a standard and say, this has to be raised to this.
Is that inclusive of the kids with the IEPs?
Yes, I mean, that has to be taken into consideration, and there are exceptions where children who have a disability may not have to pass the 3rd grade reading guarantee the way that it's structured for other children.
So let's give this young man a strong hand for coming down. He drove down from Toledo to inform us. Is he working for the benefit of our community? Yeah, he is. And we want each one of us to do the same thing, to work for the benefit of our community and the young people in our community. Now, we are still serving coffee, is that right?
We are.
We are?
Yes.
Okay, we still got some coffee up there. What else we got, bro?
We got espresso, we got some chili cheese soup, we have lattes, we have some great naturally flavored pound cake, sweet potato pound cake.
Let me get a piece of the pound cake.
Got it.
My man.
Got it.
Hey, tell him about the chili. Was the chili good?
It was excellent.
Excellent.
It was delicious.
Give me another adjective.
Stupendous.
Stupendous. That's the chili. Thank you for coming. So don't be afraid. Now, can we get some waiters back here? Maybe you want to take an order.
We got a waiter.
Want to take an order?
Take an order.
Come on up here, brother Karan and Martin. Come on. Now, I told you I work at the job center. Is that right? With 17 to 21-year-olds, putting them to work. This young man right here is one of our high school students, and he's 17 or 18. And this young man is also 17 or 18. 17. And so he's working 20 hours a week. He's getting that check, but you better be on time, right? You better be responsible, dependable. Is that right? This is our community, right? This is our future. Is that right? And our brother Darren, so he's working in the community by putting these young brothers on post. He's helping our community. So we want to appreciate you, brother Darren. Let me get that pound cake, brother.
I got you, bro.
Okay. No doubt. Now, Racial Justice Now, everybody got a flyer. Racial Justice Now is a community-based organization made up of educators, parents, youth, clergy, and grassroots activists. RJN is a community activist organization dedicated to fighting institutional and systemic racism. By focusing on human rights, RJN seeks to empower other grassroots activists to challenge systemic racism by organizing and holding people in power accountable. Write down racialjusticenow.org. Someplace you can keep it. Not on the flyer. Not on the flyer. I think it's actually on here, right? It's on there. Okay. Who are we? Racial Justice Now was founded in 2012 by Professor Emeritus Benaya Randall of University of Dayton School of Law and Zacchaeus Sankara Jabbar, formerly known as Maria Hope. Professor Randall and Zacchaeus were troubled by the lack of adequate organization and response to racial injustice. Professor Randall has been a staunch advocate for her community her entire professional career. Sankara Jabbar was forced into activism when her 3-year-old son was being expelled from preschool. Sankara Jabbar quickly realized that her experiences was happening to other black parents nationwide. So they're going to talk to us about attending board meetings. Now everybody's going to get this handout. If you take one and pass around, just like we do in the school. It's also up on the website, dps.k12.ohio.us, and some whole bunch of other stuff, right? Dayton Public School's website. If you get on the website, all of the meetings are there. We want every one of you, plus your aunties, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews, Big Snug, Big Shug, Auntie Crystal, and all of them to be at the next meeting, all of them going forward, okay? So we're going to hear now from Racial Justice Now and Zakiya Sankara Jabbar.
Thank you, and thank you, Hakeem, for organizing this and inviting us to talk about our work at the school board. We believe that changing institutions is about starting at the top. And the top of the school district is the school board. And so we have over the past 2.5 years, been working one way, first educating ourselves about what's happened in the districts. We did interviews with almost every administrator in the district, and then we used that to formulate a plan. We also been driving back and forth to Columbus to testify on bills that are related. But the big issue is the lack of community involvement in the school board meetings. And we're passing out, you want to talk about the meetings? We're passing out an example. The meeting on, what day is that meeting? Thursday? There's a business meeting. That's not the meeting.
No, it's not.
That is not the meeting. That is a show meeting. That is a meeting for them to show a school that they think is doing great. That is a meeting to allow public to get up and say whatever they want with no interaction, no interchange, just put on the record whatever you feel. And then the last part of the meeting is the superintendent saying, it's about superintendent recommendation and the board voting on, quote, business. Unfortunately, we learned the hard way. Because if we'd have known this, we would have conducted our first year a lot different. There are about 40 meetings a year of the school board, scheduled meetings. They are public meetings. Now, you can't say nothing, but you can listen. And in those meetings, it's amazing what goes on. You want to talk a little bit about it?
So the meeting that the actual business gets done at all the meetings except the one that you can actually talk at, all right? And like you said, we figured out the hard way, and the transparency, in our opinion, has been an issue. I'm sure the school district will disagree because they'll say, well, it's up on our website, the meetings are public. That is correct, the meetings are public, and people have a right to go. Parents, community activists, everybody has a right to go. You cannot speak at the other meetings, but you can sit there and you can take notes. And when it's time for the business meeting, which is the show meeting where all the business has already been taken care of and they just really come to vote, okay? You can come and speak at that meeting. But the problem is that the business is happening before they even get there. Like they're discussing, having interchanges, asking questions, making decisions. And the public is not there. It's really disheartening for me as a parent because this is very personal for me. My son is in the district. And when I look at the data, when I walk through some of the schools, I had a really tough experience his kindergarten and first year because the school climate was horrendous. The school climate was horrible. And my son went to the all-boys school, and the school is about 99% black, all of them black boys. But the climate was horrible. So that's the things that we're working on, is trying to make a difference for school climate, school discipline, and also actually deal with curriculum, because it's a multifaceted issue when people think about school discipline, when people think about the actual experiences of these young people and why they may not be doing as well as they can be on these tests. So our issue and our really is just asking folks to really get involved. if you could just attend one meeting and sit there and take notes, you know, and get back with us, we're happy to
We're gonna
organize.
We're gonna
and really
organize
testify everywhere else.
a school board watch brigade. But we need, and that's what we want is 6 or 12 people who we will sit down and we will work together as a group and train how to listen, how to take notes. Because it's hard sitting there 4 hours and not being able to say a word about what's going on around you. So you got to evaluate whether or not that's something you can do.
I'm sorry, Professor Randall, in humble respect to my elder, may I please interject and say that 6 or 12, we want to let them know we want to be 50 deep.
No, you didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish. You did not let me finish. What I was going to say is we want as many people there as we can possibly get beyond the people who are taking notes. And we want you to represent yourself. We don't need you to represent any particular group or any organization unless you have an organization or group you want. We need the school board meetings, all of them packed. But we also need people who really know how to take notes so that we can stay informed, because the minutes are useless. You go and pull up the school board minutes and all it tells you is they voted yay or nay on something. It doesn't tell you the conversation that went on, that a particular school board member asked a particular question and got this particular answer. The minutes for the school board are just pitiful. And so we need to find people who will help us take notes, and we need you to identify yourself as someone who can do that, and we need to show up for all 40 of those school board meetings. They're called strategic planning meetings, they're called board retreats, they're called board review, but they're board business meetings.
So finally, I forgot my train of thought. I got cut off. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of emotional for me, because I think about how we have been advocating for the last couple of years within the school district. This emergency didn't just happen, man. Like, this has been going on for years, and we've really been reaching out to different organizations, different community members to try to get people involved. Now we got the state here, but the time to, and I'm not trying to like make people feel bad or anything, but we have to begin to be proactive. We cannot always be reactive. Now the state's here, the state may take over the school district because they've been performing horribly for what, 10 years? I mean, this is ridiculous. Like,
and we've got school board members that's been on the board 10 years, so the school board knows what's been happening.
And I get the fact that many of us, you know, we have what's called black flight now, right? Many of the black middle class have taken their children out of Dayton Public School. But what about the parents who can't afford to take their babies out? Don't nobody care? Don't nobody care about the rest of the babies that's left behind? You know what I mean? Don't nobody care about, you know, what's happening to all of our children? And I'm happy to see my friends and family here, you know, who actually don't have kids in Dayton Public Schools. They probably don't even live in Dayton, but they're here to support what we're doing. Because as a Pan-Africanist, you have to be about all of the people, no matter where we are. You have to be about really standing up for the least of these. Because the rest of the children that's left in Dayton Public Schools, I believe about 98% live under the poverty guidelines. So that the voice is not there for them to speak up for themselves. And I'm one of those parents. Like, it's not a them versus us thing. I am that parent. You know, I'm strong enough to have a support system of my family. We have a national organization, Dignity in Schools campaign, that has been supporting our work the last 2.5 years. We will hopefully be partnering with Advocates for Basic Legal Equality and Legal Aid of Western Ohio to offer legal services for parents who have been impacted by disparate impact and racial injustice. The numbers for push out for our children is absolutely ridiculous. The school to prison pipeline is real, and we should be outraged at what's happening in this school district. And I'm sorry, you know, a lot of people felt like, oh, well, you shouldn't be, you know, saying anything like that because we have a black superintendent and a black school board president. I'm sorry, I really don't care about that right now. I care about the children. I care about what's happening with them. Because even with that kind of leadership, this is still what's happening with our babies. And we really need to hold everybody accountable.
Hasheem asked me to talk just a bit about the work we tried to do on getting to stop suspensions and expulsions of pre-K, preschool through 3rd grade. And we asked for a policy level decision. What we got is a practice level decision. That means the superintendent made a proposal that, and they are making changes in practice. Our problem with that, and we're happy that that's happening, but our problem with that is anybody who worked in an institution knows that if it's not a policy, they can change it at a drop of a hat. Overnight, you wake up one day, you come in and it's changed. Money, whatever reason they want. We need the school board to say, as a matter of policy, we do not suspend our babies. Pre-K through whatever problem they have, we're going to deal with it. And we're going to keep them in school, because how else are they going to learn? And that did not happen. Now, the school board did adopt the superintendent's recommendation. They won't suspend pre-K who are non-violent. So what pre-K does anything but hit? I mean, that's all my kids do, but it was hit. So when you say you're not going to suspend non-violent pre-K, you essentially said you're going to suspend pre-K, because that's a lot of what they do. At any rate, we're going to stop and...
I just want to point out that Dayton was actually one of 3 of the Ohio Urban 8 districts that actually suspended preschoolers. Now, preschoolers, for people who don't know, is 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds. Let's get real, man. Let's get serious. That's a classroom management issue. And if we do have children who are acting out to the point where they make the environment unsafe for others, then that child needs help. That child needs help, not put back into a possible harmful situation that they're going back home to. And so this is about the district, to add to that, did adopt restorative justice practices. It previously only had it in 1 school. It was on the east side, I believe it was Ruskin. Now they have a total of 8 schools with restorative practices, and we're still waiting to hear back about the numbers on that, whether that's working, whether it's not. I got some feedback from some parents that I know of that have children in some of the restorative practices schools, and some of them are working great, some of them not so much, because of the actual coordinator of the restorative justice room.
Suspensions are down.
Racial disparity is still an issue.
Because they don't provide us real information on racial disparity. The report right now the last report didn't actually, the progress report didn't include information about the racial disparity. The other issue is there's been rumors from reliable sources. I love that.
Very reliable source.
That the reason that some of these suspensions are down is that schools are sending people home without suspending them.
Without putting it in the record. So they're sending children home, but they're not recording it and sending it to the state.
And that's something we've got to follow up on. But we need your help. Bottom line is, they see our 2 faces all the time. They begin to think, oh, it's just you 2. We don't have to listen to you 2. If you all start turning out, speaking for yourself, speaking for whatever organization you are with, saying whatever you want, nobody wants to put any party line into your mouth, then it begins the community. One of the school board members says that it's up to the community to hold them accountable. I think they meant voting people in and out. By that time, it's too late.
That's right.
You have to hold people accountable by knowing exactly what they're doing and getting on their case at the time that they're doing it. Not 6 months later, or a year later, or a month later. You got to know in the meeting that they're getting ready to propose something, and you have to say before they even propose it what your problems are with it. Okay.
So I want to say that Racial Justice Now is a local organization, but they've also been working throughout the state. And Racial Justice Now is also a part of a national campaign called the Dignity in Schools campaign. Please write that down on your personal information. The Dignity in School campaign is to stop the school to prison pipeline.
And we're also international. We're going to the UN in May to testify on the school to prison pipeline using Dayton as an example.
So national, local, international, working on behalf of the community, fighting the school to prison pipeline. Dignity in Schools is a national campaign. It's throughout the country with over 90 members throughout the country in I think 23 states. We just got back from Los Angeles. Sister Zakia was crowned as the new co-chair to steer this to help and assist steer this national campaign to fight the school to prison pipeline. So let's give her a strong black hand for being beautiful and smart and good looking. So we want to take questions at this point in time.
I just want to add real quick that as a part of my new position with the Dignity in Schools campaign, I travel a lot. I get a chance to actually go to DC and speak on behalf of the campaign and influence federal policy. Right now, I don't know if many of you know, the ESCA, the Early Secondary Education Act, is up for renewal. Senator Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, the Republican, introduced the bill a couple of weeks ago. And we are advocating for strong, positive in the federal law, in federal language, that schools basically be made and connected to their dollars, right? To deal with racial disparity, to deal with school push out, to deal with school climate. Other areas is curriculum, dealing with culturally relevant curriculum for our students, which is extremely important. Again, a lot of intersectional issues with why children misbehave sometime in school. If the curriculum is not culturally relevant, they tap out, right? So it's not relevant to them, so I'm gonna play, or I'm gonna walk out or something. So we're dealing with that from a federal level. We work on the state level, and obviously we work locally. And I can take some questions now.
And I'll help answer it from over here.
Yes, I just had a quick question, Dr. Randall. You brought up policy. I think that was the term you used.
Policy.
Yes, they can't change policies. Now, how do we go about changing the policy so that the policy is in the interest that we want?
We have to propose. First of all, we have to know what they're doing, and then we have to put together policy changes. And I actually think that that the process of doing that is by, you can look at the proposal, and then you just advocate. You just go to meetings, advocate, get other people to go. We had.
I mean, what I'm saying is there a process that you have to write it out or get like signatures?
We can help. We can tell you what we did. We did that. We did all of that, and we would be happy to hold a session on what we did. We don't want to say that's the only way to do it. But it's possible that you could do an oral campaign and get a policy. But we can put together a kind of a workshop on how we did it, and we wrote up a policy. We collected signatures. We got expert testimony. We got what's his name? A childhood expert from Wright State to come in and say that suspending children is suspending that age children is developmentally inappropriate. So we lined up all the kind of experts that we needed and had them testify. And this is an example of the school board being non-responsive.
Yes.
Because we specifically said we wanted policy level decisions, and they did not give us that. They gave us something. So their answer is we did what you want, but they didn't, because we wanted policy changes.
And they didn't.
But here's the deal. When I worked at the law school, they complained that 5-10 years after they made a decision, I would come back. And that's my attitude is no means not now. And that you just keep plugging at it and going at it and beating on it until they move.
Next question.
What is Racial Justice Now's stance on making third graders repeat the third grade and not passing the reading test?
Well, we obviously have lots of problems with standardized tests to begin with. There's a lot of problems with the third grade reading guarantee. We have been advocating at the state level. We've had several meetings with our own local state senator here, Senator Lehner, who's actually the chairwoman of the Senate Education Committee at the State House. And, because we're such a small organization, we have to prioritize things. As a parent, I think that all of the standardized testing without the necessary resources to the school district makes absolutely no sense. And actually dealing with the children that we have from their backgrounds, respectively, not providing a holistic type of service to ensure that the children are able to perform academically and able to, you know, reach their full potential. So I would say, you know, as a parent, I think that the standardized test is a part of a larger movement, I believe, a part of a larger movement for the privatization of education entirely.
Yes.
That's an issue, and so that's what I'm saying. We need help, man. This is a neoliberal agenda that's happening all across the country. New Orleans is the first city in the United States of America, and I don't know if people know, they actually have no public school system anymore. It's entirely charter. All right? This is happening everywhere. And let's get real, irrespective of politics, because when you look at Chicago, a Democratic mayor, Rahm Emanuel, he's a part of the plan too. All right, they done closed 86 schools in Chicago. Philadelphia, Democratic mayor, same thing. So everybody is in bed with this neoliberal agenda. We really need to have sessions on political education to understand what's really happening in our community.
Politics
and
the money.
that's right. And so we have these forces who want the public education. There's a lot of money involved in that, and it comes from the tax bases of the community. So you have these oligarchs who want to get their hands on it. And if communities do not, as he said, coalesce, come together and say, wait a minute, we gonna pump the brakes on this because we see exactly what y'all doing, we see the writing on the wall, and this is not what we want in our communities. So they attack communities that are largely poor, urban, and black, and take over.
I would like to add to that. How many of us went to that town hall that they've had recently? The Dayton Public Schools. How many went to the town hall? That's not enough hands. That's telling us something, right? That's telling us something, right? What they did at the town hall, they said that, correct me if I'm wrong, they said that they wanted to take money out of other areas to put it in the classroom. We talk about the money, right? We following the money. They want to take money out of other areas to put them in the classroom. They also gave us options to pick from. We want community participation. They gave us some options to pick from. What was one of the options? Closing schools. Right or wrong? Right or wrong? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just thinking about one of the things we really believe that we think, I'm a worst case scenario. I think the worst thing that can happen is what you got to plan for. You can't plan for the best thing. You plan for the worst thing. And I believe that what's happening in our city is, on one hand, we have this City of Learners thing.
Oh, Lord.
Which is about, and we're going to assure quality schools for everyone. And who wouldn't agree with that? But underneath, and at the same time, we've had the school board tier the schools and identify the 10 lowest performing schools.
So they've already identified.
And so then the only thing that needs to happen is to say, A, we need to close schools, because we do. Dayton maybe has too many buildings given the population it currently has, and so we're going to close them on low-performing area. Well, guess where all the low-performing schools are?
West Dayton.
Instead of saying, because there is an alternative. The alternative would be to say, we're going to identify need, and we're going to be sure that every community has a neighborhood school, and if that's not a high-performing school, we will make it a high-performing school. And if we have to close a high-performing school because there are 2 high-performing schools in the same area, then that's what we will do. But I think that that the worst case scenario for me is that you get these things happening and you get the commission saying you got to do something, and then the school people say, well, what if we close low-performing schools? And then they close low-performing schools, and Dayton ends up like New Orleans, because this is exactly how New Orleans is.
This is what happened in New Orleans.
Exactly how New Orleans.
I'm sorry. At this time, we're gonna hit the lights. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has the second most charter schools in the nation. The second most behind New Orleans.
Per capita, I think.
Per capita? Okay. So the operating budget, correct me if I'm wrong, is approximately $400 million? Approximately 400 million, I was told, is that right? What's the operating budget for DPS? We need to know that information, right? That's information we need to, that's a big pot of gold for the business interest, is that right? Follow the money, thank you for that line. Follow the money. Now show me the money, but follow the money. So we need to reach out to these individuals. I want to do a quick roll call. And I didn't reach out tonight to anybody in government. I didn't reach out to anybody. I thank my priority board members for coming because I did reach out to them, but that's as high as I went. He said, Hashem, why didn't you call the mayor? I said, why? Why?
Brother Jamar, before you get to that, this young man had a question or he had a comment, and I want to make sure that.
And I apologize because it's an emergency meeting and we're about to talk about committees. I asked everybody to write down these questions so these individuals could do that. And I apologize at the beginning of it because this is an emergency. So we got to move quickly. I promised my brother we'd be out here at 7:30. I got 7 minutes. Now it's time for the cards. We're talking about committees. We're going to be forming 3 committees, organizing, coming together to dialogue. This young man has some questions. This young man has some questions, possibly some answers, possibly some solutions. We need all these minds to come together. So the first committee, right on your paper, number 1, first committee. School finance. First committee. He said follow the money. I know you're part of the school finance committee already. You ain't got to tell me. You ain't got to tell me. I thank you for that. We need to follow the money. Hazel Roundtree spoke and asked the superintendent recently. We were at the meeting. She said, what is this money for? She said, how do we measure this? What's going on here? Is this actually working? Are there metrics involved? And the superintendent's response was, don't argue with me over $1,400. Argue over me for some big money, right? $1,400 is big money in my pocket. I don't give a daggone how much it costs. It has to serve the community. Is that right? The money has to be spent for the community, not for the benefit of their friends, business interests, and those that they care about. It's for the children. School Finance Committee. If you're interested in the School Finance Committee, hold your hand up. Number 1. Nobody interested in the School Finance Committee? Damn.
Might give us the other 2.
All right, how about the other 2? Okay, we're moving on then. Board Watch. Everybody's hands should go up. Board Watch, a committee and policy. The Board Watch is dealing with policy. You should be picking one of these 3. Board Watch, going to the board meetings, getting training, how to take notes, how to ask questions, being present, being active, being involved. We're going to collect these cards. Name, phone number, email address. Because we're going to be following up with a People's Assembly in 1 month. They said they're coming back with a decision in March. Well, we want to be ready in February. Is that right? Yeah. Did you say plan for the worst case scenario? So if they're coming back with a decision in March, the community should have committees ready, on the ground, and running before they come back with a decision. We already made our decision. Is that right? The third committee, supplemental instruction. Now this is a challenging word right here. Some people told me they're interested in private schools, creating a community school, having our own schools, or a Saturday school by serving the community. We have a youth movie night. That's supplemental instruction. A lot of people have after-school programs. Is that right? Tutoring services. We need those organized. We need those to come together. We have a lot of services in the community, but we want to make sure every child is taking advantage of these services. All right, so we got 3 committees. School finance, board watch policy, supplemental instruction. 1 was school finance, 2 was the board watch / policy, 3 was supplemental instruction. We hope that you pick one. We hope somebody will watch the money. Besides this young man right here.
We have got to have people, I mean, don't need a lot of people, but we need people on the school finance committee. And you don't need to be accountant. I served as a treasurer for 7 years for a nonprofit, and all I did was ask questions. All you have to do is look at the budget and ask questions. Why is this? Why did they get it? Questions that we didn't take to the board. We also need the board watch. So let me tell you, the two of the committees I call institutional change committees. The finance committee and the board watch committee. The supplemental instruction committee is about helping the kids where they are by giving them something more, and that's important. But it's like a diet. If we don't have people on the board watch committee, if we don't have people committed to the finance committee and to changing policy, we will be doing supplemental instruction for the next 100 years. We have got to have people committed to doing board watch and or finance committee.
Can we write it on this card?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I want to thank everybody that came. I want to take a quick roll call because we got a lot of organizations in the city, and when I talk, because some people they talk about that man Jesus. All right, now Jesus told his chief disciple Peter, he said, "I'm gonna make you fishers of men." All right, so in other words, you got to go out in these streets. That don't mean stay in church. Some people want to talk Jesus, but now it's time to walk Jesus. All right, so we got to go out in these streets and do the work. We have to walk it out, not talk it out, but walk it out. So put your cards in here so we can form these committees.
Can get someone to do it?
Ron, you need something? Come on, help.
Yeah, right.
So we want to take a quick roll call. I know I invited priority board members. Do we have any? Mr. Greer, he was here. Pat Rickman was here. Thank you, Mr. Greer. Do we have any other priority board members here? Priority board members, thank you, kind sir. Tell us your name. Mr. Kevin Jones. Hello. Another priority board member. Creola Reese. Any other priority board members? Oh, thank you very much. Any other organizations that want to be represented? Any other organizations? Anybody else here? I invited the NAACP. Are they present?
Of course not.
Nobody here from the NAACP? I've invited other organizations. The Nation of Islam was here earlier. They had to leave. I thank them for that. I thank Brother Stephen Muhammad for our brother for Knowledge for Life for videotaping this for us. He works with young people as well. He's a nonprofit of 501(c)(3). He's documenting this event and will document others. You can contact him at 937-985-0779 or knowledgeforlife@gmail.com. He's going to make this tape available for sale. He's raising money. He trains young people in journalism. You see him working the camera. A lot of times, you know, it's a school night, so a lot of times it's a young person behind the camera. But he teaches and trains them at DATV. Yeah, DATV and other locations. So let's support this brother.
Ohio Student Association.
On the front line. On the front line. On the front line. On the front line. I mentioned my brother from the Just Us League. Any other organizations that want to be represented?
The Africana Elders Council.
The Elders Council, Africana Elders Council. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to give another call out to the students.
Yeah.
They have been doing a tremendous job.
So we need any churches represented, any pastors here?
Right here.
Any pastors? How you doing, sir? What's the name of your church?
I'm not a pastor.
What's the name of your church?
My name is Bill Davis. I belong to Westminster Presbyterian Church downtown. And I know that some of you are going to have to leave, but I'm going to hang around a little bit longer for anybody that wants information on the tutoring program that we have with E.J. Brown. And also, I am a regional coordinator for Single Payer Action Network.
Thank you, sir. So you said you're going to stay around, right? Because it's time for us to go. We got 4 more minutes. It was an emergency. Thank you, sir.
You got Daryl Fairchild.
Daryl Fairchild. Thank you, sir. Are you with the priority board?
Oh, he's a minister.
You're a minister. Yes, sir. What's your church name, sir? Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. So we need some other pastors here at this meeting, right? Am I wrong? Yes, sir.
We've got 4 of us here from Miami Valley Unitarian Universal.
Thank you very much for coming. So we need, yes, sir.
Omega Baptist Church, one hope, we in now.
No doubt. Omega in the house, no doubt. No doubt. So every Sunday we got how many thousands of us in the church, right? So we need a representative group. Just bring 3. Just bring 5 from your church. Just 5, just 3 to the board meetings. Get the information. Get some training from Professor Randall and Zakiya. He on the front lines. Just 3, just 5 from your church. All churches. I think we got 10,000 churches in Dayton, if I'm correct. Right? So we need the churches represented. I want to know. I'm taking roll call. Right or wrong? Tell them Hashem Jabbar said, where you at? You don't care about our children? Hashem Jabbar wants to know where you're at. For me, this is God's work. Period. I heard at a board meeting our children called customers.
Oh, God.
Did I stutter?
Yes.
I heard our children called customers. See, a customer doesn't have a potential to be a lawyer, a doctor, a minister, an engineer, an innovator, a creator. The potential of a customer is to bring you some profit. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm taught that we are all God's children of the Most High God. So I see these as the children of God. And if the man of God is not present, what the hell is going on? Are you really the man of God? Hashem Jabbar wants to know. Now look here, we're not in church, but how much did this brother charge me? Charge us to get in here? How much?
Nothing.
Nothing? No. See, that's just, no. Pull him out. Let's go. Come on. Give him a donation. I don't care if you got $1. I don't care if you got 25 cents. He supports the community. He supports the children. And I support him.